That's all, almost there. YouTube gonna live.
Ah,
Okay. Prayer book. Share screen. Okay.
Zolo yedon mara chi be ra no bara chi be ge darwa don don ji jen be par de jo bara ji ba tam ji je zo chi be ma nam ka don nyam be sem je dam ji de wa don den dong ra don chi Nyordu la na mi bara yang ba bara zo be chang ju ren bo che to bara cha ina la dong bara ji be da no bara ji be ge tar wa dang dam ji jen be bar de ju bara che ba tam ji je zo ji be ma nam ga dang nyam be sem jen dam ji de wa dong de dong ra dong chi Yordu lana mi bara yang ta bara zobe chang ju ren bo chi to bara sha. Yeah, English.
All modern sentient beings, limitless of space, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be free from suffering, and swiftly may they attain precious, unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment.
Chi chi tu sang ma ji ji fa tu lu nga yi chuan ye wa la. Guru ma xi fa tu lu nga yi chuan ge wa la. Guru tu te ren ne song de nyun ma sang ta. Zam ji fa tu lu nga yi chuan ge wa la. Guru.
For that purpose, until I attain Buddhahood, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. Until death, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. From today until this time tomorrow, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue.
Yeah, okay, da. Nga dang zu lam zhuo ren qian qing wa. Ti nang la nian tian qia wa, chu ju xia tian za de ba. Luo ma jian chu ba de ba da zhen ni. Luo ma tian hua zun nyam ya le nian tian sa sa nga dang zu xian dian ba di ma luo. Nian tian qin de bei cong qin de zuo dian bo qia ya. Bei cong qi gu le, sa zhen nian nian di xi de, da zai du zhen bi zhen dong dang jiu ma de. Zuo dian bo zuo tu bia qi gu le. Luo ma jian ba ne. Nyam za bi, luo dian bo mi na nyam xia ba zang zi de. Te nyam na wen zhan ne ye ne lu zuo le. Nyam na wen zhan ti zi ye yan zhou gui. Da nyam sang zang ya zu qiong zi de si qi ga qi. 这娘上次没把抢着去，这样娘们是要不穷嘛，送到生车去，我这就吃好了。他说这个样子想电波说出来的，他就去我说的是。
In our text, the Precious Garland of the Sublime Path, we are in the 10 things to persist in. In verse number 6, we continue with verse number 6. Until your mind is stable, persist in the composure of the meditation state. So practice diligently until the mind is completely stable. And so now when it may happen that we have attained some stability because we have some deep experience of meditation, but these experiences are just passing experiences, meditative experiences. These are like mist in the sky. They may momentarily appear, but then they will go away again. And then what happens when they go away? Then we may worry and think that now it's gone away. So therefore, without a regard for stability or thinking that we already have done some practice and so on, we must just continue to practice regardless of the experience, and practice until the mind is totally stable.
真的，他这个俺家在路电波的，从那路这先跟我说，最近通红的时候，但通红说那真的在说一切要不拖都要，这一切拖那这才从这个怕车路的，才从车路真的，在这样看车呢，就路要来了我没吧，真的要我强烈的是这。这旅游真的但这样做工的时候呀，那做这打工在大家，提高了别重新过来是。这几岁没来着，这边打破了没去送了，和强调进步工队，另外感觉嘛从事，但晓得进步工队另外感觉这些我们从就嘛是，我先跟我他那打过来，这蛮愿意话现在提起过，然后另外感觉嘛不起，那这研究过来是的是，没错一些研究是没错一些，这今年研究过来是没错一些的，送多这些历史没从起过来送多。
So, and that is when you have gained some stability, when the mind is really solid, then you may actually glimpse the nature of the mind. And when you see the nature of the mind, then a certainty, a trust in that arises. And with that, all doubt will fall away. So, but in meditation, we mainly focus on gaining this stability. Just focus on that and nothing else. Once Milarepa gave an instruction to Gampopa, and he said that when practicing Mahamudra, don't strive in physical and verbal virtuous activities, as the non-conceptual wisdom might vanish if you do so. So he said that even if you do virtuous things, if you do too many virtuous things with the body and the speech, they can also become distractions. And when you're distracted, then the non-conceptual wisdom will not arise. And so therefore, Milarepa in essence said that just focus on looking at the nature of your mind.
真的他对吧？这是俺们家店那接触不来那点，他俺们家给我们接电波那种，然后接触不起来，就让出事这个的也是，这几岁没来这偏中多，俺人干着些可能，他妈的，俺着那往哪么去切是，着那往哪么去切是，着那咱哪么的哪么去切手，是那往可能我那商业可能我那什么，买人话去提往他买小话去呢。交关冇从往他买小话去的，哪么去熊，是着那往哪么去。苏州人中的路线是吧？在苏州人中，曹州那批曹州有了提起他商业，就是这下没有啊，恰当没有啊，去呢，这年们他们去说苏州人中的路线是，都能嘛就牛面多，是宁波从的路是，但都能嘛就牛面可能先牛嘛买人把提可能到学是，宁波通常比宁波可能那路可能讲那点学是。啥的年龄讲是，但啥的年把你看啥学是，他在上嘛新报是来的，买件是来提什么买来个商业去，年把你年的了提入当是，啥学是，从呢这些差不多同时，我们这些差不多了点同学是，真的差不多同学是的，运气没变同学是，他全把的信息的区别下，那挺蛮有钱的，真的运气没变，他同学是。真着都着下年都想了的是，着那着狼那着啥是狼把的话着恰，你是你把的话都想了的是，经常没被解决的意思，我但经常没被解决，你是这个咱们大气都不大过说的也是。
Then we come to verse number 7, that says, based upon the composure of the meditation state, persist in the daily activities of post-meditation. And so, so when once you have gained some stability in meditation, then it's also necessary to bring that into the post-meditative state, to mix that experience with your daily life. Milarepa gave a teaching on that. He said that when going about, take all appearances as the path. So whatever appears as you go about doing your things, take whatever comes your way as the path, practice with it, and remain undistracted. And then this is the way of not becoming overpowered by the three poisons. This is how the six sense consciousnesses remain without fixation, without grasping at good and bad, without labeling things, appearances as good or bad. Then he said, when sitting, remain without distraction in the unfabricated mind, without doing anything to it. Then he said, when eating, don't judge good or bad, but make all flavor of equal taste. Then he said, when drinking, drink the water of mindfulness, sustain an unbroken stream of awareness. And so he said, in essence, whether walking, sitting, lying down, or whatever you do not grasp. And in this becomes then an unbroken stream of practice where there is no difference between meditation and post-meditation. So
哇，咱伢嘛开始在这要做伢们起伢子，在伢们家头点播的冲这样的，但是我们家不家头在这呢，在冲把这种那马着，在床的这种着，在大脚板上没得起，没种给家都家了嘛，这是所有图片都没都上，这就伢们起来了，罗伢们都是罗伢们，这都上眼开始穷了，罗伢们图片都没都，在慢慢拿着，但那么这种如果拉。这样拉肯定来说，伢们讲家图片，我是准备这种这样的主机波地的，常常在大国的主机波在地当对上，在西当当年，这我的咱们这有马路恰当当年没的，这马窗们送这就去那，那样在提开伢们讲。都们都是啊，这开始样在这里用呢，提供了他妈说说伢们讲家图片去，相当毛什么的穷这里在蛮多。
And so this is how a Dharma practitioner should actually practice, kind of test themselves, train themselves. First, they spend some time in retreat and practice goes well. They do quite well and they gain some stability. And then they see where they're at by going into town, by mixing with people, by encountering all kinds of behaviors and conversations, often people insulting them and speaking very negatively and so on. And in this way, they can test at that level of practice. And that is really only put to test in everyday life, because that's the time when people may speak badly to you or insult you. And then if you're able to remain moved by that and stay in practice, that shows that you have truly integrated the teachings. But then if you just stay in retreat where no one provokes your attachment or your anger, then later when you come to town, you actually don't mix it with your everyday life, then you won't be able to sustain your practice. So you shouldn't separate them, but really practice and then take the practice out into everyday life, and then really try not to be controlled by hatred or anger or attachment in those moments where you're challenged. So,
哦，他结巴的起，他结巴这没特别巧，给钱忙呢，说吧怎么了？那天掐死他，那你们俩起比那看着谁呢？他把他秋千个起说吧，那个说吧怎么行呢？秋千个吧就要说吧，我听对对说吧，他可是呢，他那他在常常你们俩的青年的，推荐忙怎么来的？杨建人把这穷来的，我听着咱们的穷是的，是我他说说特别的，秋千个吧就别说吧。 我真的现在落着说吧，现在他在说要不起的呢，这个阿卡没说的过当红呀，真正门这情况下他就有了哇，我这说现在落着说吧，我到底什么同那么吵说吧，这开始去你东把你从他把，然后对方是求生比东把你是连着他然后对，这样前头我什么吧，这求前头没把这看啥的什么都用说啥的，我这里什么同那么吵说吧是我的，这就说是中国的也是。
And then we come to verse number 8. When adversity abounds, persist in the three types of patience. So when difficult conditions arise, practice the three kinds of patience. So there is the patience of enduring hardship for the sake of Dharma. And so often when you want to practice the Dharma, you encounter hardships, things that just don't fall into place. You just don't have the right conditions, or some bad things happen. Things are just not favorable, and things just go wrong in your practice. And if you then persist and go to endure these hardships for the Dharma, then that's the patience of enduring hardships for the sake of Dharma. And then there is then there is the patience of being patient in the face of harm, and that is when someone harms you or hurts you, and you are able to endure it, accept that patiently. And then there is the patience of not being afraid about the ultimate truth. And so that is that, some people, when they hear about that everything is empty, for example, then they may think that this is a little bit unsettling. And so if you then continue to persist and you do not let that unsettle you, then you have the patience of not being afraid of the profound truth, which is the ultimate truth.
我都知道把这些种多技能嘛个都那个技能用我同那边是都用那个是的个话的就你们看那个是说他心中有什么的都能那个心中的是我基本的呢但我是同样嘛我配上的啊别的都那这用嘛同开始我就那个是种的话这这你们去过是啥的吧
Pater Rinpoche had said that I do not strive for happiness. I prefer the hardships, and that's because when I go to pursue pleasures, this only increases the five poisons. But if I suffer, my past negative karma is exhausted. So this is ideally how one should practice. So.
真的就是没那个，秋天的搞吧就把桑拿把的没办有事的，秋天的搞吧就要桑拿把的没办，有的上多，这个贵钱就把它各地把的，我在秋天了，过年这都那各地把的没办，有的也是。但现在这是话，这来贵钱就把现在常常在购买青年他说这来，我把今年今年这年他说但是去年那期特别了。这是偏把要的，东亚这年他说但是去期特别了，这个这工作来讲也个的进步也是个来参考。
Also, Milarepa said that the hardship that you endure for the sake of the Dharma brings an incredible merit. And so we can actually see the hardship for the Dharma as a positive thing. And also, sometimes we may label like a robber or a thief, somebody who hurts us as negative, but actually they could also present an opportunity to practice the Dharma. They really help us to practice the Dharma. So we can also see them as someone very kind. So.
我真的个啊，咱都少年前呢，先把检查说吧了。其他那天帮是咱多把是对吧？现在真多把真多把，条件他切换介绍他当年那有的，就那我回那的，可能那厂嘛都对成都有了哇，条件其他是。 先把践踏，他再把践踏多过来是可是呢，他先把脑外面前先别前一种我们来的对路边那路把了，我脑外面前先别前先把球先那路把，但总的来听前头嘛的是，可能前头是那在先把卡送的的先卡，的送这等前头跟送我了，再先把践踏多把那台卡。我得先把现在我过了他这么的，我把这他平常把几大钱呢，就把落萨去过把这落萨来去过来先把这他跑到这样，但其实没来这把呢，因为嘛他那就得什么多，他的那啥他多少的那的形象没去吃过偏有是吧？他那这你那好得了，别抢了什么我先把抢了，这人咱们的，我这就这抢他们说嘛我偏是吧？我这点那么大的吧，这事情可以那啥拍，还嘛那这就宿舍街我有拍多的吧，我这样那的形象嘛接，他就我婆亲那就是没来的吧，他就我婆好像有嘛了吧，我这那这了形象接的就嘛的，我这就这啥的有了吧。
Tilopa said to Naropa that, son, it is not the appearances that bind you, it is the grasping that binds you. Therefore, cut through all of your attachment, Naropa. And so that is because the reason why we need to cut through our attachment is because as long as we cannot cut through that, we will not be free. We can't become liberated if we do not turn away from what binds us. So we can take Milarepa as an example. Milarepa never stayed in one place for too long, and that's because when we stay in places, we become attached to places, we become attached to people or material things. So Milarepa avoided that by never staying too long in one place. He traveled all over the Himalayas so as not to get attached, knowing that when you stay in one place, you can easily become attached to the material things and develop thoughts of attachment, anger, and ignorance there. And so therefore he never stayed in one place, and also he never kept any possessions. He had nothing that he called his own, and that is because he never wanted to grow attached to anything. So that is why he practiced the way he did.
他那就是老来呢，这老有人都别用天连菜去当的，其他的几讲，和的派瑞就这都帮我就是老来是有啊。我真都别用天这连菜去的，那菜去的在可信通呢，都不去这除了要不的，那是这样子，都毛不有啥的话，可是几呢，但我们这就嘛的是，我真的去让我朋友就让我差的有的是。我天绿但都把钱包结果那这可惜有呢，但差不多要有嘛的说说都把这康也有嘛的嘛，我这康嘛做的别动啊有的啊，我这就当我做往常吃过呀，说确实吃过说，但确实吃用呢，确实特别健康意思嘛那这边这种了，确实特别健康是哪能就说的确实的意思。我这确实的，其他们说是有错，其实退休的，所以他们在做嘛头，刚刚嘛不就有了哇，那边用天然菜去当，其他的是一种配了就没得，这有啊，我这就查了说，等于这种那种意思，你们俩在这些老人就说是那很多，就说别啥不多，这里看来。牛毛可能年包多个位，是牛毛的空气在卡上，那点年包是多呀，别个来好不了，是空气做的，别都加了。你们俩讲空气卡呢，我牛毛花就是嘛，但牛毛光从哪提讲？前些几个年包从上先把这些进去，但从前是送过来，基本的送来卡上牛毛汤不进嘛，但汤不卡上牛毛自己，我们种起吧就是哪一种是吧？我们种起吧这就是哪一是就是我们一种的，我这是六卡的有嘞。
There's this quote in the 37 Bodhisattva practices. It says, desire to sense pleasures is like drinking salt water. The more we drink, the more our thirst increases. And therefore, to abandon all these objects which cause clinging attachment is the practice of the bodhisattvas. So, however much salt water you drink, you will only grow more thirsty. You will never quench your thirst. And this is how it is when we have a lot of desire to various things. The more you indulge in various pleasures, the more your desire will grow. There's no contentment. And therefore, the afflictive emotions will only increase. And all this indulgence in pleasure, therefore, becomes just more cause for suffering. So if desire is great, we will, even if you have a lot, you will never be truly satisfied. You will always want more. And so suffering follows from that. So what we really need is contentment. That's what Milarepa also said. He said that the best wealth to possess is contentment. So if you can cultivate that, that is really the best. Otherwise, many hardships will come. And so this practice of the 37 Bodhisattva practices is a really very profound practice. Because if we habituate to the afflictive emotions, it's hard to eliminate them. Also in the 37 practices, it says you should counter the afflictive emotions the moment they arise with the weapon of mindfulness. So the moment they arise, because if you allow them to stay around in the mind, it is very hard to get rid of them later on once you have grown used to them. So you have to make sure by applying the antidote of mindfulness that they won't take a hold in your mind. So that means apply the antidote of mindfulness at all times. Asa?
真的，他就把去想的，咱上当人家求求那强求性的那天讲，我咱前把的人家，这当前的前把的人家特别呢，这强求性这个了吧？啊，这样的，他们前把人家给他没强求性，讲呀，第四个来靠谱了吧？啊，真的，这里他强求性是他生前特别上街特别什么当不去了吧？所以我才的前把钱呢，他是生前对吧的多，人家这东啊吃多了，这点东啊吃的了这。上街没错呗，你真的是人家才是这样的，生前特别上街特别什么当要的强求性是给了吧？我天对，咱我说前面也才上面的强求性讲过的是，但你他这多可以那种高档的材料了，高档的给这让的他们老种菜地，这个老种菜地。我经常看的看大家个闲了，其实穷的朋友让去考中多，我再看大家个这闲了。穷的旁边的让考虑的是，我听这种多，这另外种，我他在前面的强调性是讲呢，偏用我吧，这说咱们弄的上，然后呢，然后这那天去过来是，
Then we come to verse number 10. When your love and compassion are feeble, you persist in the training of bodhicitta. This is a little weird. So anyways, because so the way the way to explain it is that so first you actually need to have love and compassion. So the meaning of this verse is that you can only practice in bodhicitta when love and compassion arise. So that's the right way is the translated is practice bodhicitta based on love and compassion. So, oops, sorry, stop. And so, so when meaning that when love and compassion arise, from that bodhicitta will naturally arise. So obviously, if there is not a lot of love and compassion in your mind, then it will become a little bit difficult to cultivate bodhicitta in the first place. That means we do need to reflect a little bit on the well-being and the benefit of sentient beings. And so first we need love and compassion. And love means wanting other beings, sentient beings, to be happy. And compassion means wanting them to be free from suffering. And bodhicitta means wanting them all to become fully enlightened. And that will only arise if you first have love and compassion. The Bhaskara masters all trained in the 8 verses of training the mind by Geshe Langri Tangbam. And one of the verses says that when I will take defeat upon myself and will give victory to others. So therefore, first, before we can think about meditating on bodhicitta, cultivating bodhicitta, we do have to reflect on benefiting others, really wanting to help others again and again. So,
这其实没来的吧了，听到是你嘛这大这些杂在这投入的了，是吧？这投入这些杂了，是吧？杂。
哦。
投入小队，但那接的，他投入啥接的人对他就是没来恐怕马做的，可能也换着去了，就是没来，这把他那多呀，他可是那个也把去呀去，实际的滴滴是，那实际先把建筑过呢，老马先把都实际先把做到，这就算嘛多少，光他那多呀，他得可能也把去呀去滴滴是，这也把去那他得把马抢着说啥了可能。어떤 일단 지수 말에 가서 와선 다그 동안 탐지 초지 동안 탐지 다크라는 정말 좋았어. 그런 동안 가려오나 참아도 얘기랑 정말 좋아. 세트는 뭐라다도 고라다 차단 무슨 동안 마보지 여지로 와지 좀 나좀 거야 돼. 어디 동안 얘기랑 저는 대 정말 좋아. 어제는 지금 말아 토르리 디파트 가려오나 참아 지수면 장 그런 디파트 나미면 거셔. 세트는 뭐라다도 다 참니지도. 개체 받으려는 사례. 어떤 것도 제시 나오는 거 동안 말이 다들 돌려줘. 동안 진짜 다 그때 말인 거죠. 뭐 비슷한 게 캠페인 상품 총스. 뭐 비슷한 게 캠페인 상품. 어떤 대륙 zam도 나온다. 어떤 제일 다들 현재 동안 양다 지바 제시 나오는 거. 어떤 그 zam도 나오는 거라서 된 창조 선택야 공부해야 zam도 나오는 거 살아 봐.
And so before Milarepa passed away, there was this Geshe Tapum who poisoned Milarepa, and this is actually how Milarepa ultimately passed away. So Geshe Tapum gave Milarepa poison, and before Milarepa passed, the Geshe regretted and he confessed what he had done. And Milarepa knew that this was significant. So already beforehand, he decided not to leave, to go elsewhere, to meet with other beings, because he knew that he wanted to give him a chance to confess. If he stayed, that would give Geshe Tsapo the chance to confess. And because if he confessed, then his karma would be much lighter. Milarepa saw that the deed of poisoning, killing someone carries a very heavy karma. So this is how great Milarepa's compassion was, even for someone who actually tried to kill him, who actually killed him. And so Milarepa then also said that may all your evil, the suffering coming from your evil, may it all ripen on myself. Because he saw how much negative karma this Geshe carried for poisoning him. And so then, out of compassion, Milarepa said that may all this negative karma ripen upon, or your negativity ripen on myself. Also, in the 37 Bodhisattva practices, it says, all suffering comes from wishing for one's own happiness. The perfect Buddhas arise from the altruistic mind. Therefore, completely exchanging your own happiness for the suffering of others is the practice of the Bodhisattvas. So we need to think about this and reflect about these things a bit so that we can increase our bodhicitta.
저는 다른 거랑 서 다다디다 내내 처리 추지 로 사시다 꿈만다 추주 세트 말단 고주가 있어.
This completes the 10 things to persist in. And next, we continue with the 10 things to encourage yourself.
다 텐조르니까 삼네 담배초라네 그만다 다 텐조르 대바지 요라 단조르와지 텐조르스나 테네 대바지 보세 커선 야바에다 서로 나로 세는 하다 로파 상제 지동 고관데다 공지다로 상론도 살에 테네 비지 저바지 세커서 랑조나 신제 센조르가 요와세 랑조나세 many uchi ambo son lenta malo nela tis or lenta malo nela tis 대 현조는 아주 상제 중앙 대초종 대반의 당 세진조我的现在年纪吧我说我这人就有了这句起的台湾几趟就是话就唱的没有这俺说咋行不晓得没有人不去在这就比唱的没有这当俺说没有做是忙不有的我看现在没有成就吃上上药嘛没有占卜是没有暂时的看见那没有这些百度药确实难的是要完出去就这票没有可惜他现在气特别지수 말아래 벽에 치랑 뭐 보투게 제가 전혀 물을 고나 매춘들에 공지비 정도가 저런다고 저기는 근데 손나다 공야시다 요 말 신경 손좀 버치데 시원도 심피한테 뭐 보소 와 저리 정도 전정 전주 차디요 제 능가랑서 전주你报告吧但전주是你报告吧是你报告吧这这你报告吧这咱们的忙不是别的长的忙不啥标的别的事情呢他变的事情，那这里是当然说，他是别下来的嘛，不然很多的人他别讲的强강보这个这嘛的都是呢，这嘛什么啥的不是，那个嘛的是，我这里头强然后强播这强抗被强有了，强点了，强我강보用那是讲这嘛都这嘛这那个嘛吧，人那啥的是这嘛的都是个的三种体能。这嘛是第一个是呢，天就没留在这里你干有的是，我的别的是呢，长过去呢他你那把这边没什么不有，啥情不对呢有的是，一大在这里用啥个卡瓦话的呢有的是，听着在这里用说的是啥，这用说的是，我他的没这什么东西对象是没有嘛的是，用的是。那个当初怎么也不在当前，那你把一大事情，俺做其他的痛苦嘛，真的。那同着的什么当前呢？他讲说挺难，不可信的，身边可信的。这俺做筹码的这些，都是要的筹码可信的挺难。我真是筹码这种常看自己，也看这个没需要的，我那穷真是在挺重要的。我那挺重要的，听你听俺说，提起没留起你吧，搞完这卡都是常过你吧。如果你把搞完什么，他绝对可得什么？这玩意嘛，我做那忙不在咋的的，提起在那没有拍的人，现在听说没出来，搞得可不有的是，我做做那么忙不啥有的是，但之前那把差不从就这里，强说 CMG 在忙不是强理解起忙不起呢，这就在 top 的是现在的这如果你搞啊现在那种没有啥的，他除了动脚嘛的是。除了马上我去呢，那天现在台北去了，กูมันได้แต่当你没有除了马上甚至年来去了，กูมัน带不过来。
So there are the 10 things to encourage yourself. And first it says, reflecting upon the difficulty of obtaining the leisures and endowments, encourage yourself to adopt the sacred Dharma. So think about how hard it is to find the precious human life and make this your motivator to practice the holy Dharma. So there are the leisures and endowments. They are the 8 leisures or freedoms and the 10 advantages or fortunes. These are the endowments, and so these are states that we all possess that make this existence a precious human existence. So the what are these 8 unfreedoms or the kind of ways of being free that we are free from? And so these are let's see, the what is it? Yeah, so we are not born in a hell realm. the unfree state is being born in a hell realm, being born as a hungry ghost, being born as an animal, or born as a long-lived god, or born in a place with no dharma, or born with wrong views, or born at a time when no Buddha has appeared, or born like mentally disabled, or basically unable to comprehend the teachings. And then there are the 10 endowments or fortunes. There are 5 personal endowments and 5 external endowments. So the 5 personal endowments are being born a human, being born in a Dharma land, having complete sense faculties and the intelligence, then having not committed extreme negative deeds, and then having faith in the Dharma. And then there are the 5 external endowments, which that a Buddha has appeared in this world, then that Buddha taught the Dharma, then that Dharma still exists, then there are followers who uphold the Dharma, and lastly, there is those followers support each other with kindness. So these are the 18 qualities that we have as precious human beings. And so that is to say that not all kind of human states are necessarily like precious human. One is not, just because one is a human doesn't mean one is a precious human being. So it's not so hard to be a human, but it's hard to be a precious human being. So there are also ordinary human beings that are not precious, and then there are actually very extremely negative, really evil human beings. So there's all kinds of human beings. They're not all precious necessarily. And Milarepa once, when he met with the hunter Gompo Dorjem, Milarepa told him that generally speaking, it is said that a precious human existence is very rare. But when I look at someone like you, it doesn't seem really rare, because what you do really brings you to the lower realms. And so then generally it's very hard to find a precious human life, however. And there are many ways to explain how difficult it is to find a precious human body. For example, that is explained in terms of different illustrations or examples, or it is explained in terms of numbers and so on, to help us understand how rare it is. So, for example, in terms of illustrations, so for example, if you imagine, if you throw some beans, some dry beans against a wall, the beans generally will not stick to the wall, or dry beans. But it's not entirely impossible. 1 or 2 beans might actually stick to the wall. It's not we can't completely rule it out, but it's close to impossible. But gaining a precious human body is much harder than that. Now, rarer than a few beans that might cling to the wall. And so it is said that in terms of numbers, there are countless hell beings, more than we can imagine. Like there are particles in a vast ocean. And then there are fewer hungry ghosts than that, but there are still many. There are as many ghosts, hungry ghosts, as there are snowflakes in a blizzard. Regarding the hells, there's like countless hell realms, as for example the 7 major hells and so on. So the hell realms are really vast, like an endless ocean. And the hungry ghosts are somewhat less than the hell beings, but still very vast. And then there are lesser animals than that. There are fewer animals than there are hungry ghosts. But compared to humans, there are still many animals. if we look around us, how many animals there are just in the oceans, for example, we can't count them. Or if you just pick up a rock and see how many ants there might be more than if you lift this rock, there might be more animals there than there are human population in entire countries. So there are, but there are far fewer animals than there are hungry ghosts. And then it is said that the number of gods and humans combined compared to the animals now is extremely few, just like atomic particles that can fit, or like dust particles that can fit on a single fingernail. So we can't see the gods or the hell beings and so on, but when we just look at the animals, we can clearly see how many animals there are. As we said, we look in the oceans, or we see how many beings live just underneath a rock and so on. And so there are very few human beings, and in particular, precious human beings. So a precious human life depends on very specific and great causes. And only if one has them will one have a precious human life. So one must have accumulated a great deal of merit in past lives. And without that, it's impossible to have a precious human life. And so these perfect causes of finding a precious human life include like a perfect ethical discipline and cultivating bodhicitta, cultivating love and compassion, and so forth. So having a human existence requires many different conditions, causes coming together. And now we have it. We have a precious human life. It's very hard to find. And so since we have it now, we must not waste our human life. So we should always encourage ourselves to practice the Dharma. So this is what this verse here is meant to do. It is meant to encourage us to make the best use of our time and practice the Dharma. So,
我真的当下当说，真的在当娘们看图图在，听着出来嘛说在看图图，我推出我在娘们去过来是，我这几天没来在送回来，可是他都已经做的东亚 drops，我都不抢着去上东亚就是 drop 到的现在，我都不抢着去上，但是身体老是当所说的我跟他去，我真最清楚的是。都到在东亚 drops 都过抢着上，这头人的确基本抢着上我去口现在的确去的是，那的确就东亚嘛头有嘛的是，那当时但我说去嘛是听的。那的确是说要不怕帮，给我是说 drop，我听都给在看出错，这娘们在去看的现在，说那么错的，说那么的一些错看出错啥过的是，说那么错你不是看出错啥过的是。
So now that we have a precious human body, we need to use it and do our best to practice without wasting this life. So Milarepa also had said that, if we worry about our own suffering, if you think that I'm going to suffer, then you act out of fear and you end up creating a lot of negative karma. And because out of fear and trying to protect yourself, you're going to harm others. And then Milarepa said, in hopes of getting happiness for yourself, you also create much evil, because this self-centered fixation leads to many negative actions. And so it is just that normally we don't see that this is what we are actually doing. So recognize that and give up these negative actions, turn away from them and practice virtue. Make an effort in cultivating the two accumulations, the accumulation of merit and wisdom.
真的当你说的这。当然说天教的没有在早前不特别在特别有的，俺基本没他说但基本没他的有的就是俺说，有人不得到呀，可能要嘛哇，在有人不多咱们了，俺说咱们这个几个咱们怎么起来要嘛的。 这过去我们他说可以那样回事。我是在说的啥嘛？他也我这起码没他上的给叫的古曼达，这起码没他上的给叫的古曼达不的是的。但我做今天中午的我这要听到他中午啊，可是呢，轮流去了，他够穷着呢，是轮流关系的哇。但就关系他的呀的，咱们他的是我也不晓得，咱们在贵送的就完全满出我去，可是呢，别说过就我想出，咱太贵是。人就业了，太贵穷着呢，就是把啥讲真不的，但你的没在口钱包到钱包，就钱包开的意思呢，把的这种，看到我真的就是把啥讲真不的，朗诵东西买套，这第三嘛怎么的我的是啊，朗诵东西买套，但是不朗诵了，为了说过的朗诵是呢，说过的那个话，东西买套那也是啊，东西买套在开始呢，有人不这个嘛的，看公开来不着，我就进来，但是下来的。我在朗诵东西没错了，搞了几件都还没都送走了，他录在这上都没都要不上不到当时，我真的传统的车吧，通常呢，他传的是么不真对红的是把车送在通对的，传统的车吧，通常呢，因他们在车上，因他们车上对不是，那时候给钱年不一，你知道没得开始出国听不一，开始那车上那些人，因他们车上对不了，搞了几件都还没都送多。落在山头，我都什么也不当。是的，我真的这种有点哪吒呢这帮同志呢是，哪吒呢这帮同志呢是，什么都说讲真不的，那就那忙不在啥，这其他听起来可能还是做了呗。是那啥些对，但是咋的这个最终这我的都是，真的可能，我打真这个。我在这里吧，刚是从他用他人检查，一个几件没他吃完了，所以今天吃药讲真不的是，所以今天吃药，看的那什么怎么这种东西，我这口怎么这种的，究竟加送什么？但是应该从今天究竟每年的当课之后的加送什么呢？有点究竟加送什么了？是但加送什么？搞了这件都可能都送用的的，我提到这种人，我究竟今天究竟从哪加送哪些的是？我从这天出去找不着卡线，家从那家的也着，家他有讲他也从我那么来的，我在家他有讲他也是，家看到了讲他也是，家看到也不有他也着不的是，总有吧？我在那有的也着不的，他我从那里，所以都那是小嘛的，是等几点钟吃中昨天对天我当说，在那他也不说就我们他们年的在给我住标了，总之钱不用，但没他开钱不巧的。
And we come to verse number 2, and that says, reflecting upon death and impermanence, encourage yourself to virtuous practice. So now we have this precious human body. However, it won't last. It is impermanent, whether we want it or not. Even if we want to stay, we won't stay for long. Even though that is the case for everyone, we don't really think of death, but one day it will happen, and it will happen suddenly, and no one expects that. So therefore, now we need to encourage ourselves by thinking about the impermanence of our life. We need to encourage ourselves to practice the Dharma with more diligence. There's this song by Jigten Sumgön. So Jigten Sumgön said, this body that is formed of the 4 elements, sometimes the elements flourish and sometimes they decline. So sometimes we feel well and strong and healthy, and at other times the elements become imbalanced and it all declines again. And the body withers like a flower in the fall. It is said that an autumn flower doesn't last for very long. So the body is just like that. Winter will come around quickly, and then the flower will wither. The body is just like this flower. It will not stay for long. So you should really think about it carefully. Will this body stay for long, or will it not? So, for example, we spend our time with many friends, and when we meet, we talk and we laugh, we get along, and so on. All of this, so to some song, all of this is like an echo. All these conversations are like an echo. They sound all good, but then again, it's not real. It's all, he said, it's all a lie. You can't rely on it. Really think about it. And then he said that wealth, at first we work hard to accumulate wealth, but then it gets all spent and leaves us. All of it is just a lie. Do not rely on it. And Thich Nhat Hanh said, all worldly things are like this. They are a lie. The 8 worldly concerns are like a lie. They seem so real, like a rainbow in the sky, but they're nothing but like a rainbow in the sky. They're here now. Now they're here and now they're gone. Now you can see the beautiful rainbow color, and the next moment it's already gone. You can't rely on it. It will go away. And so therefore it is advisable, good for us to meditate or reflect on impermanence. Because if you reflect on impermanence, then it will encourage you to practice the Dharma, to practice virtue with great diligence. So the practice of reflecting on impermanence is really a very important practice. So.
저는 직견성공 고어스 가디종 세나 직견성공 녀마데 로마 조냠 반디공 파르케 리강 다솔트라 삼참다 송사라 로마 가지데 냠 다차 강스르티메 다차 강스르 파르케 단디공 파르케 소르다 못라레 디공 고바이 다차 강스 라프쇼사라 사티네 이제 트라 페디테는 직견성고 다 트레인 치랑소 초타데 댄스 로마티 라사라这这大的这样子对天呢，但牛家话他那时间有了牛个学送了多，牛家话他那个家个做二十弄吧，20弄吧这屁股你看从铺的是，听嘎他把这嘎确定自己过钱的是自己有了，自己啊，
嘎确定不可能，
自己过点人自己过钱的是自己有了，
哦。
自己也当自己，我听过点的是，八千秋也是了，牛个学送了，八千秋也是的，几点钟我，这几点钟我都看天是也是，这里下姑娘这个啥了吧？下姑娘提给下路去，这下路去做的，这里有啥了吧？
做的下公开，
下公开车嘛？
哎呦，
车嘛这些那多，这些那在那多没？我提给下个路去做的，啥有了吧？啥都要南卡下的是，这工作出大这没得点的是老嘛是。出大这点，我就真的，你看从我老妈他年我在下次的我在有啥啦？年的人钱差些。
对吧？你呢？
人钱差。
OK，
我这个出大点嘛，说的是。大点嘛，说别我才问的差的是，那个呢？我才问的是相对可重谁是的？这种是的。
真的。
这些重啥的真的？这个空各种在肉还各种，我肉的啦，这家开始呢，从小去这么都是。啊，这马丁真几天钟我这，几天钟拿饭的我说了，抢干了不了，抢干这年来人家差个，你看走的这我送的是，我这我送的这几天这里结了，可这说。各种说要的南上嘛，人山人把的是南上嘛，人山，他可能出大天是吧？人山是抢没抢不透的，是抢没抢了吧？那电卡刚是，这没大卡了什么？电卡刚是。
抢啊，这卡子多，抢。
电抢没抢不了，电人山的吧？电的。这抢没抢不的电卡刚是的，你妈大卡人吧？我沟通哎。
comment ça dit ring se cache ça
ring se ta supu na sama ring se de wa 不苏不要对这苏不能上马人赛的是吧？
嗯，
这苏人赛都是抢没抢的，抢嘛上马所以抢嘛有点抢几，
抢嘛，
抢没抢呢？
抢嘛所以 broom 的是吧？
我这大应该做天然的抢嘛，抢嘛有点，这人赛忙查抢没抢，我觉得呢，也电下岗是，好的是电下岗，电抢没电这人赛的是吧？这抢没抢吧？
ringsetten så broom 查是呗？
不懂是呢，
的抢嘛，
我抢没说差的抢嘛是呢，我就拿抢是抢嘛有吧？拿脏嘛说是抢嘛有吧？家下听人说抢，我提人赛忙查提错抢的是的。
抢嘛的看得查的，sorry，
人赛的苍马做恰的，人赛忙不人家你主要什么忙说不看人赛的说话题苍马做恰，那都如的说啥吧？
这里抢嘛抢送，
抢没抢对的电下刚是，电抢没电的人赛的啥吧？
抢嘛的电抢送啊，
苍马嘛的电的人赛的意思，人赛的电的话，这忙不抢没抢不了，晓得没电下刚实际没错为是。
啥这个名？
电下你嘛打下刚的了，说这电下刚是，电抢没抢的话晓得，大不算。同大毛呢，就其他嘛，就其他嘛都，什么其他困难。
的 broom 的呀，不我们
不容易呢，
抢嘛，
上面都能怎么说多了说，
抢嘛是的 broom 的，
但没些没面，你去说，
嗯，
抢嘛是能怎么说起的话，能太了有嘛抢不着，
的 ringsetten是查个的，
我这人生什么，人生别忙不有了，晓得提抢没抢的说如说这说做我们的事，不算人生忙长的，这人生的点啥的哇，点的哇，人生这我就点的我自己的哇，这人生点你这抢没抢对点下岗是，抢没抢的哇，不算。
好像，
嘛我那不拉那学一学，没怎么，同大会我这，那人现在忙不有了哇？
也那个，
ja, det ska teillä tuhtutin kerran suuren Anilla.
OK，
我真的呀，真的，你拿过呀，听这这节了，几天中午那了，到时候是在那面送米种的是，在这了，实在在了，这面送米种的是，这面送米种的真的，他听说别说忙不了票，但是他啥的，可能是啥，听说没啥呢，大不得我有了，上嘛，你嘛大话在说你说我们听着，他切头西，那种好切头西给他切，你切头西给的，你嘛也那个做，他没啥这些没得，我做朋友去，他真过了哇，真的。他如果把我做朋友就切头去，如果自然把东地把切骨地呢，你送我嘛，就这就去，你说的话，但如果他人不去送，这些人肉的话，叫做如果自然去，但他就其他情况，因为就干什么这种，我到这里，这就真的当这个问题就起来光把你们打发说来，别吃饭这种我马上去给他，你们我吃饭就去老师。真的可老师那他听就说这来，我说我让希望我怎么去当个嘛的是吃饭这种。咱多对的，不错，那我当时700的钱，我说是多领了他。
Yeah. So this song Ruben just mentioned by Jigden Sumgan, Song on Impermanence. So where that came from is that he sung this song during a gathering with his disciples at in a place called the Dakchagang. It's like they were going into the mountains. He was with his disciples, and at that time he asked Jigden Sumgan asked his disciples to show their signs of accomplishments, to show their miracles. And then many of his disciples displayed various miracles. For example, there was Nyo Gyalwa Lanang. And he miraculously traveled to India and returned with an arura flower, which is a medicinal plant, and made it an offering to Jigden Sumgan. And then another disciples, Garchu Dingbam, he manifested as the Yidam Bhairava, which is a form of Yamantaka. And then See, and then another disciple of Jigten Sumgön, he is it
Parchen Chue.
Parchen Chuyi,
So yeah, Chue Gigi.
Parchen Chuyi. And so he dissolved his body into the heart of Jigten Sumgön himself. And then there was a tea person, his name was Tashi, and he placed a clay teapot, right into space. So he would just put it in space and stood there. So each person performed these incredible miracles, and then there was a close attendant. His name was Nine Rinchen Dag. So Nine Rinchen Dag, he couldn't show any miracle, and he felt very embarrassed. And then, out of deep shame, he passed away. But then after his death, his body could not be pierced by any sharp object, by any weapon. And then Jigten Sumgön placed his walking staff at the heart of the body, and that's when he sang that song. And so then after that, after he sang that song, then Rinchen Dag's body turned into relics. And so now, Neil Denzin, what happened to the relics? Neil Denzin here?
So when it turned into the relics, and it was like so many uncountable relics came from his body. Then the other person he collect with the broom.
Oh, thank you. And then after that, Jigten Sumgön then said, then whoever comes to this sacred place will not fall into the lower realms. And this is why even today, actually, many corpses are being brought to this place for their resting place, for being offered to the vultures. And many of them are brought from far away, also from Lhasa. Now with cars, often they bring like 2 or 3 bodies every day, and then they're being offered in the sky burial. And often also what people do is they collect the bones of the dead person, and then they pound those bones, and they bring the bones there, because if sometimes when they come from really far away, if they actually take the corpse from really far away, then the corpse will rot. So then they try to bring part of the body at least there. So they bring some of the bones there. And so it's a very special place where people really want to bring dead bodies, like as a funeral, sky burial place. And Trubhan said I actually knew a monk who stayed there, and this monk would always do these ceremonies with the corpses, and he'd say, "I've seen so many corpses, and yet even though I see corpses here all the time, I never truly thought that will be me. I will die too." So the story is really to remind us that we should think about death a bit more. Also.
Yeah, then that's interesting. That the general dedication here, that is so this can make it toaster.
We dedicate now. We're a little bit over time.
Yeah, that's my lord. The general dedication. Dinzi. Dinzi.
了，通过面对。
너 단 통마도 다리.
너.
자리 뒤치 세트라 랩인데 와면 되면도. 하다마도.
Okay, I can share. Yeah.
Okay, now say it again. Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind, root and lineage lamas, divine assembly of Vedams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, heroes, heroines, yogini, and assembly of Dakinis, dwelling in the 10 directions, please heed me. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all sentient beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, pride, and jealousy not arise within my mind. May thoughts of fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta. And through that, may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. Even at death, may the torment of suffering not arise. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such, and in the pervasive clarity of Dharmata. May I, in any case, gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo.
Okay, thank you. That's the